Have you ever heard of a Mongolian deathworm?
A Mongolian deathworm? No, I've never heard of that before. What is it?
Dude, it's pretty fucking crazy. So basically in the Gobi Desert, there's these big ass worms that travel underground in the sand. And the crazy thing is that they can kill you from a distance by either spraying venom at you or by electrocuting you. I mean, imagine being electrocuted by a worm and you don't even see it coming.
And this is something that actually exists in nature? I've never heard of this before.
No, it's basically a cryptid, but I think it's based from legends passed down from local people. Still, though, the idea of a worm just spraying venom at you is pretty terrifying.
Kind of makes me think of the graboids from Tremors. The idea of predatory worms burrowing underground, killing people.
Do you know much about cryptids?
Oh yes, in fact, I've spent many years researching various cryptids around North America.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. What kinds of things have you seen?
Well, I'll tell you, Joe, I've seen quite a lot of wild stuff during my time as a cryptozoologist.
Well, damn. Start from the beginning. What made you decide to even get into researching cryptids?
That is actually definitely by far the most interesting story I have. It'll seem a bit unbelievable, though.
Does not matter. You gotta tell me.
All right, well, here's the story. Quite a few years ago, I was hiking the Hoh River Trail in Washington State. I had been hiking for the day, and I was going to find a place to set up camp and settle for the night. I had decided to break off the trail and find a spot that was quiet and away from where other hikers and campers might be. This, as it turns out, was a terrible idea. I didn't have any issues for the majority of the night. Everything was nice and quiet, and it was a very peaceful night. I eventually settled into my tent and fell asleep. Sometime, I want to say somewhere around 2 or 3 in the morning, I was violently awoken by something tearing at my tent. I couldn't even scream. I was so terrified. I suddenly felt something grab me by the legs and yank me out of my tent. It was very dark outside, and I couldn't quite make out what had pulled me from the tent, but it was definitely not human. This thing was enormous and covered in thick, almost matted hair. It had this very strong, very pungent odor. I can only describe it as kind of how a wet dog smells. I was just about to try and crawl away, but this thing slams its hand against my head, and that was it. Lights out. When I finally regained consciousness, I could tell I was in some kind of cave. It was dark, cold, and smelled musty. I didn't have any clothes on besides my underwear. I had a splitting headache, and as I was looking around, I hear this loud grunt. The creature that had attacked me was sitting down on the ground across from me, and when it realized I was awake, it stood up and started grunting softly. It continued to grunt and started doing this weird movement, kind of like a weird tribal dance. I don't know why, but I was captivated by it. I couldn't look away. It kept doing this dance, and I noticed it was slowly inching its way towards me. The closer it got, the more features I was able to see of it. It had to be at least 8 feet tall, completely covered in thick, dark hair from head to toe, with the exception of what I can only describe as ape-like breasts, like how the breasts look on a female chimpanzee. And it just kept on dancing towards me, and I couldn't look away. I was both terrified and fascinated. It stopped just in front of where I was sitting, looking down at me with these large yet hauntingly beautiful eyes. And then it pushed me onto my back, and that was it. I'm mildly ashamed to say it, but we made love.
Stop. Just please, for the love of God, stop. You are not seriously going to sit there and tell me that you had sex with a Bigfoot, are you?
Well, I was genuinely terrified that if I did anything to upset the creature, that it would kill me.
So the Bigfoot forced itself on you. I mean, I don't want to say it, but you're saying that it raped.
No, let's not say that. Let's just say that it was a mutually beneficial transaction.
Dude, I'm actually at a loss for words right now. I thought you were going to tell me a bullshit Bigfoot sighting story. This is fucking outrageous. Maybe this is the episode I retire on. I mean, because that is by far the most unbelievable and disturbing story I have ever heard. And the other week I had a scientist show me his alien penis. So what the fuck?
Well, you know, Joe, it's a crazy world we live in.
Dude, you say that as if you didn't just tell me you had sex with a Bigfoot that literally snatched you from your tent in the night.
Love is a crazy thing, Joe. Sometimes it defies all logic.
I'm genuinely fucking baffled by everything you have said so far. I want to scream right now because I have no other words to use to describe how utterly flabbergasted I am. So, I mean, was this just a one-night stand? Or are you still seeing this Bigfoot lady?
Well, I've taken to calling her Gaia, and yes, I still do see her. Although, not as often as I'd like.
That's a sex tape I think the internet might want to see someday.